The country of India is home to over 1.4 billion people. That's more than 1 out of every 6 people on the planet Earth. Now, for international retailers, this means that India is an exciting but complex opportunity. So, entering the Indian market requires local knowledge, the right partnerships, and an understanding of the Indian consumer. Our guest today helps global brands unlock the potential of this massive market. We're talking with Prateek Misra, head of luxury and food and beverage for India at JLL. You're listening to Where We Buy. It's the show where we talk with retail experts and we visit the places where we buy. My name is James Cook. I research retail and real estate for JLL. Welcome, Prateek, onto Where We Buy. It's great to have you.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and it's always a pleasure to be speaking to you.
Yes, I love it. Are you joining us from Mumbai today? Is that where you're based out
Yes,
of?
I'm based out of Mumbai. We've just had a lot of torrential rains in the last couple of days.
Oh, no.
So yeah, it's very normal monsoons in India at this point.
So let's start off. I want to understand that people listen to this show and watch this show around the world. Not everybody is that familiar with India. So let's start really high level. What are the major retail markets in the country?
India is, from a GDP perspective, from a growth economy perspective, we're ranked number 4 right now, right? Just ahead of Japan at this point, and we've got, like you said, we got a 1.4 billion population in the country, and a majority of that population is under the age of 35, right? So 65% of India's population is under 35. So major consumers in that bracket. But I mean, coming a little bit into the kind of economy where, specifically in terms of retail, in 2024 we were at $993 billion. Okay,
Gotcha.
and in the next 10 years, right, by 23, we're supposed to go to about $3.4 trillion
Wow.
only for retail in India. And those are massive numbers,
Yeah.
right? So the government is doing whatever it can in terms of subsidies, in terms of getting people to doing business in India easier. India is very regionally divided. Within India, you have multiple states, multiple regions. So it's a country within a country, right?
Ah.
So when you come into India, we're basically divided into north of India, south of India, east of India, west of India. We'll get into all the specifics later, but every 4 quadrants and region have a very different way of consuming. When it comes to
Oh.
retail, food and beverage, tastes and preferences, Indian body type is very different in the north, south. It's very complex. So I'll get into that as and when we speak. So when retailers are entering India, they do a lot of research on Indian consumers, right? Especially jewelry, athleisure, apparel, because there's no one size fits all for India, right? So from that perspective, we'll get into a lot of the data that kind of these brands look into when they enter India. But it's a huge gamut and a huge different ball game in terms of understanding the consumers in India.
So if you're talking, let's say you're talking to an international restaurant or retailer, there's no quick way for you to explain the market because it's so diverse.
It is, right? I mean, let me give you a stat. 70% of Indian population is vegetarian. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and 30% of them are eat non-vegetarian food. Again, there's a selection there as well, right? When you say meat in America, you consider all meats, right? In India, it's either chicken or mutton, then there's certain religions that don't do pork. There's a ban on beef in certain states, right? So one of your best beef burgers at Shake Shack can never be sold in India, right? So there are nuances that people kind of figure out. So when McDonald's was entering the India market, they came up with a vegetarian burger, which became their best-selling burger in India. All right, it's a simple potato burger with a potato patty and a little bit of rocket leaves and that kind of stuff. But it became a huge success because they understood the market. It was a $2, one and a half, $2 burger, but they understood the market that yes, the non-vegetarians will still eat the chicken and the mutton, but the vegetarian 70% of that will consume the vegan burger, the veg burger, right? So
Wow.
that's just a new, and that's just a starting tipping point of F&B in India. I'll get into vegan and I'll get into the kind of regional stuff that is, but that's just an overall perspective, so people can understand a little bit more.
So really, any food and beverage would have to adapt in some. Maybe not everyone, but most of them would have to change their menus in some way to
I
adapt.
mean, yes, I guess, yeah. I would, yeah, the right word would be adapt.
Yeah.
Like the likes of McDonald's, Domino's, Taco Bell, all these guys have entered the India market, right? So they have their uniform menu, but they obviously regionalize it a little bit. They go a little bit local as well. So whatever works in certain parts of the country, they kind of work on their, and they know it's a huge market, right? So if those two three new items on their menu kind of takes care of the rest of the menu that they do. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, their other burgers or pizzas and all are massive hits,
Ah,
but that special menu that you see, the Indian menu, right? It's a big contributor to the revenue.
gosh, that's fascinating. So one of the things that I do know about India that I want you to explain is this idea that foreign direct investment, so outside investment, isn't permitted directly. You have to have an international. I'm sorry, you have to have a local Indian investor partner. Is that true? And how does that work?
Yeah, so basically, single brand retail, 100% of investment is allowed in single brand retail, 49% in multi brand retail, right? So when you're doing multi brand retail, you do require a local or an India partner, and that's the best way to kind of enter the country. Uh, I mean, for various reasons, right? I mean, knowing the geography of the country, local knowledge, government approvals, and all that kind of stuff. And there are multiple different ways to enter, but yes, there are ways. More and more international brands are now entering the country, but most of them are through franchisee routes, joint venture routes, or licensing agreements.
Which one is most of those three? Which one is the most popular? Do you think?
Uh, well, I'll probably say franchisee and joint venture agreements are the two top favorites that a lot of people kind of go with. And yeah, and that's basically because they get to keep operational control.
Yeah.
At the top level, they can spend time in the market, see what's working for them, what's not working for them. So they have eyes and ears on the ground, and they have a local partner kind of who helps them navigate the market as well.
How many different groups do you think? Is it just a few or a lot of folks doing this kind
No,
of?
so I mean there are about 10 to 15 odd groups that are in this business. About 5 or 6 of them would be the prominent ones that probably a lot of people would have heard of. At the top of my mind, the Reliance Group has a lot of international brands. They brought a lot of international brands to the country. Aditya Birla Group is another group that bought a lot of international brands in the country. Tata are the ones who tied up with Starbucks. There are about 350 stores now with their joint venture with Starbucks, and many more, right? I mean, I can think of Myntra is tying up with Abercrombie and Fitch. Tata is also getting Lululemon. So multiple, operators. Apparel group, we've got Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works. There are about 5 or 6 prominent ones which have got a portfolio level of brands. And then there are certain ones that specialize in food and beverage, right? There are certain ones because it's a very different business and a model. So the likes of Taco Bell and McDonald's and Domino's, they will specifically go with people who understand the food business and industry in the market. Though, having said that, Reliance, for example, is also foraying into. They're the ones who got Pret a Manger from London into India, right? So they're also foraying into food and trying to do a little bit more in that space. But yeah, those are the top 5 6 names that are relevant in India.
If a brand is coming from outside of the country into India, are they more typically going to go into an urban street location or into a mall location, or does it depend?
It honestly depends, but 90% of them would take the safest route, which is the mall,
Okay.
right? Guaranteed business, footfalls, success rate. It's easy, very easy to measure, right? All these sales data, all with AI, everything is available at the click of a button, right? So they have all this data available for them. But that's 90% of the route that they take, right? Will be especially the apparel brands, cosmetic brands, furniture, home decor brands will 90% of them will go into the mall. 10% of them, if they are certain brands are not suited for malls, then they would probably go into a standalone kind of a situation. Like IKEA, for example, when IKEA came into the country, into India, they decided, they took about 4 years, 5 years of research before they kind of opened their first store in a city called Hyderabad. Now, that was a standalone because there was a few acres of land, a massive development. But that's not. Then once they entered the country, then they came back with a model that could work in a mall as well. A smaller model that kind of works in malls. So a lot of brands kind of tweak their formats once they've entered the country. Decathlon, for example, another one who kind of takes standalone spaces, large spaces, then came up with a certain smaller format that is a plug and play for malls. So 90% of them actually look at malls, and then maybe the balance look at standalone locations.
Are there many malls, say, compare it with Europe or the US? Are there a similar ratio of malls?
Yeah, I would say so. I would probably say so. Like we said, right? India is a 1.4 billion economy. In terms of population, most of them spend a lot of their weekends in the malls, right?
Yeah.
Going to the mall is a family activity, right? Starting from all the way from breakfast to maybe watching a movie, shopping, taking the kids to a family entertainment center, ending with maybe desserts, ice cream, whatever. That's the full day spent in the mall. At least the dwell time is about 4 to 5 hours for an average Indian family in a mall. Like I said, the weather is not very conducive to kind of be out and about and doing shopping as such on the high streets. That's the reason the mall infrastructure is such that they kind of make it. They make the consumer spend a lot of time in the malls. So there are a lot of mall developments in the country, and every city has their 3 or 4 top malls, right? The best malls in each city. So there are certain groups that have got the best malls in the country.
Got it. Let's maybe you could sort of give me an overview. Let's say, hypothetically, I'm an international apparel chain and I'm thinking about the Indian market. How do you proceed? What does the process look like?
The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to do a market assessment, right? That's the most important dwell time that each brand kind of spends, understanding and studying the market, right? Like I was telling you, each location is different and each consumer profile is different. Like for example, Abercrombie, when they were entering the India market, they spent about 5 years understanding the Indian consumers, understanding the buying capacity. Is the brand suited for the Indian market or no? Right? It took 5 years for them to finally take a call. Then they've tied up with somebody. So market assessment is one of the most important ones. And secondary, I think one of the major ones is the partner identification, the right partner, right? It's very easy to enter the city, but in terms of, have to have a long-term vision, right? You need to have a 10, 15-year vision when you're entering a country like India. Having the right partner, that's very important. So, spend time, do your due diligence, studying the partner, use companies like JLL, to find you the right partners and stuff like that. But spend time on that partner selection because that's very important. Legal and regulatory framework is also very important, right? So, kind of understanding the ways to get around that. Supply chain is another big major one that they have to kind of look at. So what a lot of companies do, James, is before they enter the retail per se, they set up GCCs in India. Now GCCs are global capability centers. Okay, so think of it as an extension of your US office. So you have an office in the US. You're opening a extension of an office in India at say cheaper real estate cost, cheaper labor cost, amazing English speaking talent, great infrastructure, technology. So you're getting a lot of that at 1/3 the cost. So they kind of set up these global capability centers in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and now Delhi, where they kind of test the market, and it basically becomes a support function for their US entity. And once they've set up a GCC that kind of gives them enough time to spend on the ground, and then they've understood the market, and then they're ready to open a retail outlet. So before they actually open a retail outlet, they already set up their GCCs in India. And a bunch of the companies that I just spoke about have already set up GCCs before they actually open their retail outlet. So the likes of Lululemon, the likes of Lowe, the likes of Tesla, Victoria's Secret, all these guys had GCCs before they actually set up retail stores, right? So that gives them the perspective of understanding the market, learning the nuances of the Indian market, and then getting into opening a retail outlet. So if I was a business head of a company, apparel group, or apparel company, or any other brand in the US, I would probably look to open a GCC to kind of see and gauge the market, understand the nuances, and then obviously get into the retail discussion of finding the right partner, market assessment, and all that kind of stuff.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. So they inadvertently get more comfortable with the market because they're suddenly opening this back office in India. So
Correct.
they're just interacting with people, and now you've got coworkers in the country. So it just makes sense. I want to talk a little bit more about what works and what doesn't. What makes a brand well suited or not for the Indian market? And we talked about food, so you could talk more about that, but clothing too. I'm curious about both of them.
Let me just tell you, like, India is a very price conscious market. Okay, there is a certain amount of niche population that is spending on luxury, but India is not China in terms of luxury spending, right? It's getting there, but it's still about 5 to 10 years away. So predominantly, India remains a price-conscious market. The just for you to get things in perspective, the middle class income in India is defined anywhere between 10,000 to 50,000 US dollars, right? That's the middle class, and anything above $50,000 is considered upper middle class, and anything below obviously is considered lower middle class. So that's the kind of population that the most of the consumer, most of the brands want to go for. And having said that, very price conscious. So fast fashion does really well in India, right? Brands like Zara, H&M, Uniqlo, Marks and Spencer, fast fashion brands do amazingly well. Apparel brands do really well. Right. So, like I said, the average population is under 35. So that those kind of brands that appeal to those age group do really well. Athleisure is another huge component that's doing really well in India, with Lululemon coming in, Alo Yoga looking at India. Athleisure brands like Nike, Skechers, they do really well. Not their footwear segment, but their training and their Under Armour, for example, their training and their athleisure segment do really well. So anything that's honestly price sensitive, which is aspirational, does really well. But like I said, fast fashion would probably be my top one or two. And then obviously cosmetics. Cosmetics is a huge one that is doing really well in India. A lot of the global brands, even outside of the US, K-beauty brand, Korean brands, Japanese brands are all looking to get into India. And they're tying up with various people. Like Rihanna recently launched her Fenty Beauty in India, right? Through another group called Sephora and Tira. Exclusively can only be bought in these outlets. And more such names that you'll hear, Laura Mercier, Bobby Brown. A lot of them are exclusively being sold in India. So that's another huge market. And beauty, fragrances, and cosmetics. That's another one that does really well in India.
I guess we talked about food. Is it generally fast food, quick service food that comes to India from outside the country?
Mainly yes, because again, like I said, because of the price consciousness of the Indian consumer, an average meal or an average ticket size would probably be in that $2 to $5 range. So then quick service restaurants do really well. There are obviously fine dine restaurants and larger family oriented restaurants, but the major success has always been in the KFC, Domino's, and McDonald's, Taco Bell model, right? India is fascinated with American food, right? So there's always that to keep going back to that kind of food. But what is happening is India is moving a little bit more towards the healthy eating option, right? So vegan food is now becoming a big thing in India, right? There are certain only vegan restaurants only, right? That will not only serve stuff that's vegan. So that's moving a little bit slowly towards the health conscious, mindset, because like I said, the average age is below 35. So everyone's getting into that, the healthy eating kind of a model. But mostly QSR brands are the ones that do really well. Brands like, again, mall driven concepts and family oriented driven concepts like do really well in India. So everything is all about family. right? So spending time with the family. So a brand like a Cheesecake Factory would do amazingly well in India. So everything is so. Like I said, Paul. There's a format called Paul that opened from France in India. Everything is a little bit more on family driven, and cafes are the next the big joints in India. After Starbucks and the other groups that came in with Costa Coffee and all that kind of stuff, homegrown cafes have come up in a big way. So there is an obsession with spending time. It's like a third office space, right?
Yeah.
If you're not in the office and not at home, you will probably work out of a cafe, and the cafes want their experience to kind of have the person spending more and more time in their cafes. It's experiential, right? Whether you're coming up with a business idea, you're doing a business meeting, you're always associating that with the coffee shop. So that those coffee shops are growing in a big way. There are a lot of them already, but those are some of the ones that are doing really well in India.
Now, I always thought you mentioned coffee. I always thought of India as drinking chai. It's a tea country. Is coffee popular in India?
It is.
Okay.
It is. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. I mean, yeah. See, honestly, India is a tea drinking country, but we love our coffee, right?
Good.
I mean, all the from Vietnam, from matcha is huge in India at this point, right? So people are moving from coffee to matcha now, right? So having said that, I mean, it's a huge. There's a huge population that drinks coffee. But now let me get this right, right? In terms of coffee, India's coffee is not a black coffee. The concept of coffee in India is with milk.
With milk, yeah.
Right? The highest selling coffee category is cold coffee. Right? A ice latte or a simple cold coffee with milk. That's the highest SKU for a coffee guy. Right? Generally, it's always coffee on the go, black coffee. Here it's more experiential, sitting down, having a croissant, having a coffee, having a cookie, spending time in that cafe. It's not so much of grab and go. There are certain models that have come with grab and go, but the success have been in the formats that have done their food right and the coffee. Because, like I said, the population try to spend time in the cafes, and with that, your food game needs to be right up there. So, of course, while their coffee is amazing, but even their food is right up there in terms of their hot foods, their desserts and all that kind of stuff. So it is more of a coffee drinking place, but it's more experiential. It's not more grab and go.
Good. I like that. I prefer that. We're trying in the U.S. We're trying to turn back to that more experiential coffee. I think they went very far in the grab and go direction with all of the chains in the U.S. So okay, so you sort of teased this, but I want to dig into it a little more, talking about different regions of the country being quite different, with different populations and different consumer tastes. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
India is divided into north of India, south of India, in east and west, right? So every region has a certain preference and taste, especially in the food category, because the palate of a North Indian is very different from somebody staying in south of India. Right, it's very difficult for me to explain you in terms of food items, but in terms of spice levels, in terms of the palate of eating sweet. Certain people in certain parts of India like to eat sweets with most of their meal, or their food is a little on the sweeter side. Certain parts of India prefer their food really spicy. The easiest connotation for any person who's not in India is like a chicken tikka masala.
Oh yeah,
right. That's the staple. I'm sure you have tried it.
Oh yeah,
but it's
had it
very
last week.
different. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Right. So exactly. So that's and chicken tikka masala is differently made in north of India, south of India. And in every region it's cooked differently. Right. So if you come and eat in India, you'll have 4 different type of chicken tikka masalas. Right, especially and even with the butter chicken, right? It's exactly the palate is different, so they make it as per the Indian palate. So similarly, in terms of apparel as well, certain brands kind of make clothing for the Indian consumer. Right. So, for example, when Uniqlo launched, Uniqlo decided to do these long kurta type of clothing, right?
Right.
Suited for the Indian market. Yep. Did phenomenally well because that's the kind of population that we have, and even though they stayed very close to their whole concept of the whole Japanese design and everything, but they came up with a concept of doing these kind of kurtas, right? So even H&M, when H&M was doing when they do certain collaborations and they see what works, so they tie up with global Indian designers. So H&M tied up with Sabyasachi, who made a whole range of clothes for them, did phenomenally well, right? So like I said, they adapt as per the Indian body type. Levi's, for example, did a whole campaign with an actress called Deepika Padukone, right, to kind of get their positioning right into the country or reposition their brand, right? Because it's conceived differently in the US and conceived differently in different parts of India. So, like I said, they have to keep adapting to the kind of region that you're in, and hence that's why they have to keep kind of reinventing and keep trying certain things. So another example is lingerie, right? Lingerie shopping in India is still considered a very intimate affair, right? So when Victoria's Secret entered, they had like these amazing, larger than life open stores, and they weren't able to figure out why are some of these stores not doing well. They were right in the center of the atrium and all that.
Right.
Then they figured out that Indian women don't like buying lingerie in front of men or male staff. So then they realize, okay, then we need to have smaller stores, more intimate stores, redesign the stores, maybe put lingerie at the back, put the beauty in the front. So these are certain concepts that you understand the regional nuances of the country, and then you can adapt and plan your store designs and kind of do all that kind of stuff. So these are only on the ground learnings. I mean, if you ask somebody, they will probably not able to even give you this idea before you kind of put it on the table. But these are things you learn, as and when you take that plunge.
So
Yeah.
you work with brands a lot. What advice would you give to somebody who's considering entering the market? It sounds like do a lot of research and get really familiar with the market. Don't go in too quickly.
100%, right? Like I said, do your homework thoroughly. Spending time in the market research of the brand and start understanding the Indian population, understanding what will do well. And again, don't have a long term plan for the country, right? Don't have a 3-5 year plan. Have a 10-year plan. Like when IKEA was entering, IKEA spent about $1.5 billion to kind of just understand the market. They had a 15-year plan for India, right? So, like I said, when you kind of come into the country, you have a long term plan, and you don't do anything for the short term. But again, understand the market, spend time in the market, on the ground learning, right? Nothing replicates on the ground learning. You have to have people coming and spending time into the country. Like I said, GCC is another great example. Set up a small little GCC office space in India. Understand the nuances, how things work, how the government regulation work, and how does business happen in India in general, right? So that's very important. Obviously, choosing a business partner, that's one of the most important things that you should do. And understanding the price value equation, right? Like I said, the Indian consumers are price conscious. So pricing your products, testing certain price points, like I said, the metro cities, the metropolitan cities in India, Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai. Out of these 5 locations, what is your strategy after that? Then there are, level 2 cities or tier 2 cities, which kind of aren't the metros, but the second rung of cities, right? So you have to have another positioning for those markets and a different price point for those markets. What will work in a metro city in like a Mumbai or a Delhi will definitely not work in a tier 2 town, right? So that is another kind of homework that you have to kind of do and understand while you are looking at the market, and you have to stay focused in your whole approach, right? Don't just go into an expansion of 100 stores. I want to open 100 stores, 150 stores. Come with the mindset of doing a long term game. Open 5 in the premium metros, and then have a longer strategy in terms of some of the other kind of like I said, tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities. So yeah, that's a little bit on it. And I think what India is really lacking in terms of retail is this whole concept of outlet malls, right? So that's another one. In the US, outlet malls are huge, right? They do really well. Simon Properties, and a lot of them are interesting models. That's something that hasn't come in a big way to India yet. So that's another opportunity that I see from the American kind of retailers and that kind of stuff. If somebody can get that bit right, I think it'll be a great shopping experience, apart from the malls that are already here.
So you heard it here first. We need to figure out how to bring outlet malls to India.
Absolutely.
Well, we've had on this show one of our biggest outlet mall operators is Tanger in the U.S. And we had the CEO on the show a couple of months ago. So if I had known, I would have pitched him on.
Now you do. Now you do. So for the next one, you can definitely get him on, and we
Yeah.
can always take it from there.
Oh, I love it. What's the big mistake that you see people make when they're trying to enter the market?
I think one of the mistakes is tying up with the wrong partner.
Okay.
Right? One, I mean, it's not always about the money, and it's not always about the kind of percentage or royalties that you're getting. In terms of the largest, the a company with the largest number of brands in their portfolio may not be the most suited for your brand, right? You have to understand what works for your brand. What are the kind of like I said, I mean, finding the right partner is crucial to the whole situation and the whole solution for this the long term game. But having said that, finding that the partner is where you need to spend maximum due diligence on, right? Spending time and finding who is the right partner for you. Coming to India, doing your own research. Don't go by what partners tell you, what consultants tell you. Do your own research, right? There's enough and more data available everywhere, but do your own research about the consumers, and spend time, shopping, experiencing. If you're an F&B brand, then dining at certain locations, right? Especially when you're coming into the country, use that 1 year, 2 years to study the market. And there's no shortcut to learning, right? Unless you learn it on the ground. That's the best way to kind of learn. But I think from that perspective, I don't think there are really any mistakes as such. But again, I think your expectations need to be realistic.
Yeah.
Right? If you have an expectation that in the first 3 years I'm gonna do 100x of my in revenues and that kind of stuff, that's not gonna happen. Right? You have to have a 5, 10, 15-year plan for India.
So if the most important thing is choosing the right partner, how many options do you, I know you sort of said this, but like, let's say I'm a hot international brand and I'm looking to India. How many partners would I potentially have? How many different groups would I be evaluating?
So to be honest, like I said, you'll be evaluating about 7 to 8 top groups, right? There are about 15 to 20, but again, those are maybe broken up. Again, depends on what category you're in. If you're in the food category, if you're in the apparel category, if you're in the home category. So I would probably say there will be about 5 to 7 operators or partners to kind of choose from, that you could kind of look at when looking at the market, and look at the track record, right? Look at how many brands have does the company already have?
Yeah.
What is the kind of expansion that they have done, or what's the roadmap that certain brands have taken, come in for the last 5 years? A Starbucks, for example. If Starbucks has 350 stores, it's been 10 years or 12 years since the time they came in, so what's the kind of trajectory that they've taken, right? So everybody has to have a long-term game, but choosing that partner will give you the kind of leverage to see who has the right, interest in mind, and who's the one who's going to be able to give you that, scale, and who's going to be able to navigate that market for you. So those are probably, say, between 5 to 7 major operators. We work with all of them, right? So having said that, if there is a food brand, or if there's a cosmetic or an apparel brand, there'll be a certain category that we will introduce them to, because we know that certain people are very good in apparel, certain people are very good in food, certain people are good in entertainment, certain people are good in experiential dining, or cosmetic brands, for example. And e-commerce, right? E-commerce is another online presence. Some of these guys do phenomenally well online. So when certain brands enter India as a country, they test the potential while doing e-commerce. So they may license it to a certain partner only for online. And if they see success in that online, then they say, okay, they know how to run the show, they know how to navigate. I might give it to this person to kind of, do my India piece for them as well. So that's another way to kind of test the market while, doing a little bit of online and seeing success there.
Tell me about what some successful brands that have done this right.
Some of the fast fashion brands, right? H&M has done really well. Uniqlo entered pretty recently, doing really well. Zara has done extremely well. Sephora, for example, has done quite well, and Starbucks in that space has done well. So these are some different categories of brands that have done really well. Apple has been a huge success story in India, right? So much so that they've decided now to start manufacturing some of their iPhones in India as well. right? So it's such a big market, but again, like the government, has to support you in a big way, right? So, for example, Tesla finally entered India, in the last couple of months. Finally, because EV is a big game going forward for India. So in the next 10, 15 years, American or guys who are doing EVs will see India as a huge market in terms of subsidies, in terms of India as a market, in terms of potential, right? So the government also has to support you in a big way. So having said that, certain formats like that have done really well. Apple, like I was talking about, has done extremely well, and they've always had a long-term game for India, right? Spending 10, 15 years into the Indian market and more manufacturing in India. So make in India is a big catchphrase in India. The more you start manufacturing in India, your costs become more effective. You start the price becomes more attractive for the consumers. So that really helps companies adapt and be flexible in terms of pricing. Nespresso has entered India, and they will probably they'll have a great show. They're doing well globally. Lego has also entered India. Some of the newer brands that I was talking to you about were Lululemon in the athleisure space, Alo Yoga, that is again something in the athleisure space that will do well. Abercrombie and Fitch has tied up with the Indian company, so let's see how we've been waiting for a long time for brands like Abercrombie to enter India. So these are some of the success stories I think you will hear a little bit more about. And departmental stores also, right? There's like I said, India has a fascination for some of the departmental stores. So Saks Fifth Avenue, for example, is signing up with the Indian entity and looking to open stores in India as well. Similarly, Galeries Lafayette, right? Another departmental stores, they're coming into India, in I think end of this year, early next year. So you're going to see more and more departmental stores, more larger experiential stores coming into India, and the success stories of these fast fashion brands, right? If they have done well, then the brands that are entering in that space know the kind of way to navigate that market. But these are some of the success stories in India so far.
Got it. So there's a lot of well-known names in there to talk about that are clearly saying, hey, this is a market we want to get into. Thank you for joining me. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, it's been amazing, James. Hopefully, I've been able to get somebody's ears and interest onto India in terms of the market, especially the retailers and some of the F&B players.
Prateek Misra, head of luxury and food and beverage for India at JLL. Thank you for joining Where We Buy.
Thank you so much.
If you want to hear more interviews, audio, retail tours, and new research insights, you can subscribe to the Where We Buy show on the iPhone podcast app or on Spotify. Pretty much wherever you get your podcasts, you just search for Where We Buy. And we're also on the web at wherewebuy.show. And our theme music is Run in the Night by the Good Lords under Creative Commons license. All right, that's a wrap.